Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our beautiful City Hall. I'm never going to make it on TV because they keep moving me from one side to the other, and I don't have a good side to get on camera, but I'll deal with it anyway. I'd like to welcome everyone from out of town, my fellow council members, our county legislators, everyone from the general public who has a very deep interest in Auburn, wanting Auburn to succeed. And I think we're all on that level. The Harriet Tubman home that we're going to get into in a few minutes, I know the city has a statement that we'd like to be read into the record just so everyone knows about it. But first of all, I'd like to introduce and welcome Rosemary Powers from Department of Transportation, I believe it is. So, Rosemary, please.
Good morning. I'm just so thrilled to be here in Auburn today. My name's Rosemary Powers. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at the New York State Department of Transportation. So happy to be here. I just had a wonderful, although quick, tour of South Street. Saw how just the beautiful homes and mansions, the Seward Mansion, the other beautiful Victorian buildings along the road, and had a very quick visit at the Harriet Tubman house. Very quick. I would love to come back and spend some more time. Thank you, Reverend, for showing me around. Really appreciated it. But again, I'm really glad to be here. This is Capital for a Day, Central Region, New York. This is this wonderful program that Governor Cuomo has started, where he brings his cabinet to a different region of New York State. We've been in Utica, we've been in Rochester, and now today here, kind of in the central region. So he brings his whole cabinet out. They start in the morning. We started at the Holiday Inn in Liverpool this morning. Entire cabinet with all their teams with them. And what the governor does is he tells folks, go out and take a look around, see what's happening in this region, see what people need, see what people are doing. And then at the end of the day, we come back together, the cabinet members, and they'll talk about what they saw, and we'll try to come up with some solutions, some recommendations for moving forward. So Commissioner Driscoll, the new commissioner at DOT, he's just started at the beginning of July. I think he might be familiar to you because he's actually a former mayor of Syracuse. Sorry, he can't be here today, but we are doing a series of events, DOT, so we're all covering, and I'm glad that I'm able to be here in Auburn. I actually wanted to have this event mainly because I did want to take a chance to see the Harriet Tubman house. But anyways, Commissioner Driscoll, he knows very well how transportation promotes mobility, supports economic growth, and enhances the character of communities. Here in Auburn, he and Governor Cuomo are working with state and local officials, Mayor, thank you, and the community to improve connections in this historic neighborhood. We also, I know there's a few important people in the room, and I do want to acknowledge them. Mayor, again, thank you so much for having us here. John Camardo, who's a councilman. How are you, Councilman? Thank you. Peter Ruzicka, did I say that wrong? Ruzicka, thank you for coming. Ryan Foley, legislator, thank you. Thank you, legislator. Michael Didio, who's also a legislator, thank you. Benjamin Vitale, thank you so much for coming out this morning and on such a rainy day, too. Reverend Carter, again, thank you so much for that tour. So much appreciated. And Suzanne Randall, who's from the Economic Development Council, thank you for joining us as well. So again, here, very, very happy to be here touring the historic neighborhood. It's clear why protecting and preserving this community and its historic resources is critical to the strength and character of Auburn. The Harriet Tubman Home, the Seward House Museum, the Cayuga Museum, the Case Research Lab, and the Willard Chapel are all part of New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation's Underground Railroad Heritage Trail. And last year, the Harriet Tubman Home was designated as the Harriet Tubman National Historic Park. We, that meaning DOT and the state of New York, have done here before, and more is on tap for the future. Earlier this year, we completed a $1.6 million project that provided road resurfacing and sidewalk and crosswalk upgrades between Metcalf Drive and Loop Road. I know, the Commissioner knows, the Governor knows. There's always more that could be done, and the Department and the state of New York will continue to work with you, the community, and your elected officials to make that happen. So that's the end of my kind of prepared remarks. I'm really here to listen. I'd love to hear, I know the mayor has a few other things to say, a few other folks to introduce, but then maybe we can have a little bit of a conversation if that works for you. I think we were supposed to do a walking tour. I don't know if the weather is quite conducive to that right now, but I'm happy to go out and take a quick tour at least. So thank you.
With the permission of our guests from the state, I do have a prepared statement I'd like to read, and then I would ask other members of the community if they would come forward and voice their concerns or ideas with you, if that would be all right, if that works in your time schedule. And I don't know what your time frame is, but we have a gavel up there. We can get you out of here real quick if we have to. So, all right. I do want to take a minute and give a shout out to Robert Harding, one of our local newspaper reporters here. Robert came up with the idea of having the Capitol for a day here in Central New York. So, Robert, thanks to that, with your article, we forwarded that on to Albany, and we ended up with the best part of the deal. So, thank you for thinking about Auburn. We've been in communication with the governor's office about this section of State Route 34 all year. His staff has been very receptive to our needs. In fact, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul has visited Auburn twice this year to discuss our needs to be anticipated of the establishment of the Harriet Tubman National Historic Park. So I thank the governor for his willingness to assist and his recognition of the fact that the Tubman Park will be a major economic development and tourism development project not only for Auburn, but for the Central New York and Finger Lakes region. This summer, we completed Phase 1 of our South Street reconstruction project. This was a locally administered federal highway assistance project funded through the New York State DOT. This project was a great success and a significant improvement to State Route 34, also known as the Harriet Tubman Memorial Byway. I would, however, like to bring to your attention to Phase 2 for this project, which we have planned to reconstruct South Street, State Route 34, from Metcalf Drive to the city line. This part of the project is even more important now that we have the National Park Service designation for the Tubman home. Here's the situation. Phase 2 of the South Street reconstruction was approved back in 2012, and we actually began to work on the project. South Street reconstruction project, New York State DOT PIN number, all that. We'll forward this on to you. Design work was commissioned in 2012, and we actually completed a third of the design process when in May of 2013 we received notice that the federal highway assistance funds for the project were deobligated. There are many things that are unfortunate about this set of circumstances. One is that money, time, and effort have already been gone into the project because it was once an approved project. The second is that the timing is now crucial because we really need to get that road ready for the Harriet Tubman Park. The management planning process for the new park will be conducted by the National Park Service over the next 2 years, and so planning for this reconstruction of this road needs to begin now. What I would like to ask for you this morning is that you help us restore that funding. On behalf of the City of Auburn, I thank all of you and the Governor for your time and attention to this matter. So if you could look into that, and it would be very beneficial to us here in the city, in the surrounding area. So with that, I would ask anyone that would like to address us here today, please come forward. And if you just give your name and your address for the record, that would be a great help. And just keep in mind that you're being taped, so some of my friends are here, so I want to have them keep that in mind also. So please come forward. Council.
I'm Councilman John Camardo, and I'd like to take the opportunity first and foremost before we move on to thank everybody that was involved in the reconstruction of South Street to bring us to the next phase of one of the great advancements in the city is the development of the Harriet Tubman home. We had a ribbon cutting a couple weeks ago at the Seward Park, and I was there with my 11-year-old son, and I said, Anthony, this city is so full of history from Tubman to Seward, and you're seeing history in the making right now. I said it's up to you to further the history of Auburn and to bring great things to this area. So I just want to thank everybody that was so instrumental in investing in South Street and bringing South Street back and to see the great things that are going to happen. That's why it's so important that we ask the state to provide the funding so we can make the Tubman home a historical landmark for the city of Auburn and state of New York and for the country. So thank you for being here today, and we appreciate everything you can do for us. So thank you very much.
Good morning. Mike Didio. I live in the south end of Auburn, and I'm also the legislator for that district. And my concern is the foot traffic to the Harriet Tubman home. I walk up there quite often. I live on Clymer Street, and I'm sure that there are plans for sidewalks and such. One of the concerns is the bus kiosks or the shelters. It come to my attention over the summer that advertising on one side of the shelter is a safety hazard. And we did take a, DOT, took care of the piece, the white paper from Bill Hudson down in Auburn, right over to the DOT in Syracuse, that when you look out that one side, you cannot see traffic coming and people coming east on Clymer Street. I'll tell you where this shelter is. It's down by Garrow Street Extension and Clymer Street. So when you look out the window, if you're on a motorcycle or if you're in a car, you can't see. Accident prone to happen. The same idea going out South Street. So I'm sure there's going to be a considerable amount of bus traffic going out there, and obviously people waiting for the buses and cars pulling out. So that's just another concern. So I would like to see some things that you are going to do and keep in touch with that. And I appreciate you coming over, and will keep me posted. Thank you.
I think I'd be amiss if I didn't say something this morning, being a representative from the historic Harriet Tubman home. First, thank you, Mayor. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity to be here this morning. Ms. Powers, Ms. Moore, all the others that I've met this morning. Thank you for the little bit of time that you had to spend at Tubman House. It seemed as though it was a hot button for you to be there, and we were more than happy to have you take part of that. I have some concerns, and you've addressed some of those concerns, Mayor, as it relates to the sidewalks there, but I think the county should also know that Harriet Tubman's historic house is in Fleming. So if you stop the sidewalks in Auburn, there's still that space between there and getting to the historic residence in Fleming. So I think the county needs to also take part into making sure that some of the things in the South Street area gets taken care of as well. Because we have people now who walk down sometimes from the hotels, and once they get past where the old Cowlitz is, there's no sidewalks, which makes it extremely difficult, especially for seniors who are coming down. And if by chance someone had a wheelchair, there would be no way that they could get to the home from there. So that is a major concern that I have. Also, another concern that I have is that there is a lack of transportation to even get to the Tubman House once you get to the city of Auburn. But definitely if you come in on the by way of the airport or the bus station in Syracuse, you have no way of getting here unless you're willing to pay $60 to $100 for a cab ride or take 2 hours on a bus to get here. So I think if this is going to be, not if, it is a National Historic Park, but if we, the city, is going to benefit from it properly, we really have to look into some type of transportation here in the city to get people around, not just to the Harriet Tubman home, but to the other historic sites that we have here so that it can be beneficial for the entire city. So that's just a little concern that I have, that the transportation needs to be updated in this area so that people can get around. And it's going to take not just the city, but the county as well, because this whole region ties into it. So again, Mrs. Powers, thank you for being a part of it. Oh, and by the way, I'm Reverend Paul Gordon Carter. I live at 27 Grover Street. I'm the resident manager for the historic Harriet Tubman home. I forgot to do that in the beginning. Thank you again so much for your time.
Hi, my name is Susan Racinko. I live at 111 North Marvin Ave in Auburn. I come from a large family. I have 9 brothers and sisters. We have always lived in Auburn, New York. Actually, 8 out of 10 of us still live here. I just want to let you know that it's an important city to us residents that aren't in politics or anything else. As far as the roads go, I have a husband and a son that ride bikes every day. I was thrilled to see that South Street had a bike route. I think it's very important. And also, I am a person with multiple sclerosis, and I think it is very, very important that when you do set up handicap, that you actually have a handicapped person that comes there, one in a wheelchair and one that is walking as myself. Because although you ramp out for a handicapped spot, it's fine if you're in a wheelchair to walk that distance. But you're an able body using a cane, that distance becomes huge. So thank you. I appreciate you coming. I will have to say I am a little disappointed that the governor didn't come.
Hello, everyone. I'm Councilman Pete Ruzicka, and what I view this reconstruction in this part is a historic corridor, and the involvement the involvement required involves not only the city and the county, but I think it also need to be part of the town of Fleming's plan as well. I think by including all stakeholders here, that we can make this a very easy transition to allow handicap access, bicycle access, and perhaps even allow easier walking access for those able-bodied. I think we need to include all these types of pedestrian and two-wheeled and as well as four-wheel traffic. Again, we need to make sure that we have adequate visibility, such as that legislator Didio outlined. And I think we really need to have, and I like the idea, we actually should test it with the handicapped people. Let them, even if they're not really handicapped, let's put somebody in a wheelchair and try it. Because if it doesn't work, what good is it? So we really need to be cognizant of what we're doing and make sure that the execution is correct. So it's very important. It's going to connect two historic buildings that already have some connection in the history, the Seward House and the Harriet Tubman House. And we all know the relationship between Harriet Tubman and William Seward. So we can continue it and connect it with a road. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bill Lupian. I'm the city engineer for Auburn. And it sounds like everybody's gung-ho for this South Street reconstruction. This was approved by the Federal Highway Administration. We had a master agreement back in 2009. And like I say, it was deobligated. It would be nice to get it reinstated. Along with the Complete Streets legislation out there, this will be great, that we'll be able to accommodate safely. I mean, we have an elementary school, Seward, around the corner. They will be able to safely walk down there. We have Tubman Academy, grades 7 through 12. In the other direction, they could go down there. The big thing is, too, is also this is an economic development issue here. When this national park comes in here, and these people can walk from our hotels, visit this site. They can also drive or use the other modes of transportation. This is going to create jobs. It's going to increase our tourism, fill our hotels, help our economy, sales tax, and all the rest. So, I mean, it's a real big economic driver to have this project reinstated and have that. Also, this is being Route 34. In Finger Lakes, we have a lot of lakes, and there's usually a lot of the state highways go north and south on the sides of them. We have quite a bit of truck traffic. And this road was never designed for all those big trucks that are going through this region, whether they're servicing Auburn industries, and we do have a lot of them sliding over to the Seneca trash place over there and the recyclers, and so they're really beating up this road really terrible. Also, as part of the South Street one, the city undertake themselves on our own nickel. We improved the water main. We have a 12-inch water main going down to Clymer, and the worst water main in the city right now is a 6-inch undersized one down in this area. So we need to also replace that. Now, I don't know if there's an additional money usually on the state projects. Sanitary and water main are considered betterments, and there's usually no funding for that. But there is funding in other state programs. Would be nice that when we do this project, we can also probably upgrade that water main that's in terrible shape. But I'm an advocate for all modes of transportation. That's part of my job. And I'll tell you, we really appreciate the state and all the working with the city in previous projects. We've done East Genesee Street, West Genesee, York Street, this part of South Street, and we've gone down there and we've reconstructed those roads and put sidewalks, and I'll tell you, it's amazing how many people use those once you put them in there, and how the people can safely go from one point to another. We owe it to everybody to be able to go, whether you're in a wheelchair or bicycle, to go from point A to point B. So anything you can do for us, really appreciate it. And also our economy could use a little extra sales tax money, and that cuts down on the reliance on our property taxes, which nobody likes to hear about raising those. Okay, thank you very much. Do appreciate you coming. This has been a great opportunity. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm sorry I'm late. Tim Lattimore, Vice Chairman of the County of Cayuga, former councilman, former mayor, and somebody brought up the handicap. I worked with Mayor Ed Lochran back in the day when we did all the curb cuts for the handicap, so hopefully we can improve on that. But Mr. Lupien brought up a good point, which was the truck traffic. I think that with 81 going down, that's going to force all that construction traffic to come this way. So somehow, if we can coordinate with the thruway, to somehow give some of those, I think the biggest attraction is probably the Seneca Meadows landfill. A lot of traffic's generated because of that project. So hopefully, if we can discount or get an agreement with New York City to somehow let that truck traffic come up on the thruway to avoid 81 and everything else. Right now they're cutting over to save a few dollars, save some fuel. So if we can somehow manage to give a discount to that traffic, I think on the thruway it would be helpful to alleviate some of the traffic that's coming in our undersized roads. So if you would take that in consideration, we'd appreciate it. But we appreciate you being here, and we'd also like to have some additional monies to take care of bridges and roads and everything else that we need taken care of. The infrastructure is taking a hit. So thank you very much.
I'm Sheriff Dave Gould. Just on safety purposes, as a chief law enforcement officer of this county, if you drive down South Street now, which you've already done, and we welcome you here from Albany to Auburn, certainly, it's a very unsafe road from the city of Auburn, where it stopped at Metcalf, to where out to, and this does include the town of Fleming. It is an unsafe road. Mark Farrell has a great business out there at Whitechapel. Thousands of people use that business every day, or every year, I should say. And there's really no place for those people to park unless it's on the roadway, and there's no shoulders out there. So with Mark's business, and with certainly the Tubman home, which is, we're also proud in this county of that, we really need your help. It was promised, it was taken away. As everyone knows, it's state taxpayers' money, and we do pay state taxes here. We really need the help for the safety purposes. There's going to be a lot of traffic out there, and it's truly, right now, it is unsafe. I can't imagine what it'll be when the Tubman construction starts. We really need that money to fix that roadway just for safety purposes, and certainly to make our city the best city in New York State, which I already believe it is. And this county is so proud of that Tubman and certainly the Seward Mansion to be 2 miles apart. And we should all be proud, but we need your help. So whatever you can do. Thank you.
Good morning or afternoon. My name's Chuck Mason, and I'm the city clerk here in Auburn. I live at 204 Genesee Street. I used to be on the city council 15 years ago when a lot of the push to try to lobby the federal government for the Harriet Tubman National Park began. And Mike Long's over there. He was working with us hard at the city back at the time. I know that now he's working with Reverend Carter and Karen Hill to try to plan for the future at the Tubman home. But one thing that I wanted to add to the conversation here today was that it's not only significant that there's going to be a Tubman Park in Auburn, but the Tubman Park is significant because there's going to be two locations in this country that are going to be established as historical parks for Harriet Tubman. The site here in Auburn as well as the site down in Cambridge, Maryland. And it's very important that the entire story of Harriet Tubman is told because she was born and that's where she began her work down in Cambridge, Maryland, and the last 50 years of her life was up here in Auburn. And we're sister cities through council and mayor proclamation with Cambridge, Maryland. But I do think it's important to note that the Cambridge, Maryland side of the Tubman Park project is definitely ahead of us. In fact, it's already been the construction has already began. And I do want to just point out the fact that the state of Maryland really stepped up down in that part of the park. And the state of Maryland is basically funding 50% of the visitor center that's being built for the national park location down in Maryland. So I can't say enough about the fact that this meeting is happening here today and that there's 3 other meetings happening right now at the same time at the community college and out at the Cornell Cooperative Extension. This is a great concept that the governor's come up with. And, you know, the fact that people are in this room, people are in 3 other rooms and having these similar types of conversations is great. And I can't say enough about how the governor has really tried to tie himself in with what is going on. And Kathy Hochul, the lieutenant governor, has been in Auburn twice, as the mayor mentioned earlier today. But one of the biggest things that the governor could do for the city of Auburn, for the Finger Lakes region, for the Central New York region, is to assist us with coming up with the funding that's going to be needed, not only for the road reconstruction, but for the visitor center and the 50% match that's going to be required to push this Tubman Historical Park to the finish line. The National Park has begun their work. They've been in negotiations with the Tubman home. There's still going to be a couple more years of planning in the works, but what's going to happen very soon down the line is that we're going to have to be coming up with some major funding to really make the project happen. The state of Maryland stepped up to the plate down in the second location of this park, and hopefully the state of New York, Governor Cuomo, can step up and really assist us with making this significant. One of the messages that we had for the people down in Maryland was that it would be great if the Maryland Park promoted the Auburn Park, and it would be great if the Auburn Park could promote the Maryland Park. And we really believe that it's got the potential for a lot of, you know, tourist draw in both locations. And, you know, it can be significant. But one of the things that has to happen is the 2 parks, the Maryland Park and the New York Park, really need to be equal in scope. We can't have it be that the Maryland Park is more dynamic than the New York Park. I mean, it really needs to tell the story in a similar fashion, and they really need to be equally dynamic. So I know that what we're going to need here locally is the support of Governor Cuomo, Lieutenant Governor Hochul, and the state of New York, and we thank you so much for your time and being here today.
Anyway, I want to thank Chuck Mason and others. My name is Michael Long, and was mentioned I worked with the city and the county for 27 years putting the background together for a lot of this. But I will mention a couple more things in addition to what Chuck had just recently stated. Myself and Joe Shepard, my partner, we've been working with the National Park Service on working on the logistics of the creation of the park. From what the Park Service has told us, that this is going to be one of the major national parks in the state of New York. They equate it to what's going on down in the Hudson Valley, and the FDR site, Franklin Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, Valkill, as well as the Vanderbilt Mansion, which is actually where I'm from. And they look at the visitation, and it's over 500,000 visitors a year. And when you look at the economic impact that this whole national park site will have is just astronomical. But I was able to go down to Maryland this spring. There's an annual conference that someone from Auburn has actually set up, and we do have a good working relationship between the state of Maryland and the National Park Service. And I will tell you that the state of Maryland has already pledged $21 million towards their visitor center. Most of it has come through a federal transportation, the old enhancement program. The old T21 enhancement, I don't know if there's a current version of it, but because it's a visitor center, they were able to use that money because it's on a state highway. And again, as you know, it's 80% federal, 15% state, 5% local. And it's the same formula that we've used for many of the projects here in Auburn that was mentioned earlier. Billy and I worked on all of the historic strikes, trying to get all the roads together. And that missing link going back into Fleming to connect up with the Tubman home is really critical. But we want to certainly encourage the governor, the city, the county. Everyone has gotten together and actually through the Upstate Revitalization Initiative put together a program, a request to try to fund the visitor center. And has been said, the state of Maryland has come through with flying colors. I disagree with Chuck. I think we need a bigger site in Auburn than they have in Maryland. It's only 15,000 square feet. I've got pictures of it if you want to see it. I also have copies of this. But Gig is here from Beardsley Design Associates, and they have actually volunteered and donated some services to create the feasibility study for the new visitor center that we're looking forward here in Auburn. And it's about 45,000 square feet at this point, and it's going to be a phenomenal resource for all of us. There's also, as many of the people in the room know, that Kate Clifford Larson, who's one of the premier researchers on Harriet Tubman, just had HBO sold the movie rights to her book. They're now producing a film. Viola Davis is going to star as Harriet Tubman. So we really want this built now, because when the movie comes out next year, everybody's going to be coming to Auburn, like when Team of Rivals hit, everybody went to the Seward House. We want to make sure that they come to visit us here in Auburn. But there's a lot of positive energy. There's a lot of great things happening. But Kate has offered to keep her research materials and donate it back to the Tubman home as part of this research library. So a visitor center is one thing to certain people. There's also 60,000 artifacts that have been discovered from the site from Dr. Doug Armstrong in Syracuse University at Maxwell School. That will be part of the research facility that will be here. So you're going to have scholars coming from all around the world. We've talked about an annual symposium. The Amy Zion Church, who's been the caretaker of the property for over 100 years, continues to do that, and that's why this whole National Park Service is really coming about. But the annual pilgrimage brings up to 700 to 1,000 people every year just for that one weekend alone. And as this project really starts to materialize, I think everybody's talked about the dream, about putting it together. They've talked about Harriet on the money. All of a sudden she's going to be a figure in a lot of ways, and so the time is right. So hopefully you'll encourage Governor Cuomo, and I know he said a lot of positive things in the paper when they talked about the national park, but we need the visitor center, and we need the state's support. And as I said, Maryland's already kicked in $21 million. I hope the governor's good for at least 30, right?
I feel like I should respond a little bit, not probably with any details that you want to hear, but I can say that you have certainly convinced me that it's important to finish the extension of this road down to the Harriet Tubman Center. There's literally no doubt. See, I was saying you convinced me. I didn't say that I have the money. But I will certainly I'm going to bring that message back today to the commissioner and through him to the governor. I can see myself, and a little bit of my background. I'm new to New York State. I came out to New York in March from Massachusetts. I'm a Bostonian. I'm still kind of bouncing back and forth between Albany and Boston, and I was telling the Reverend that one of my hobbies is history, and I actually lead historic walking tours in downtown Boston. So I know how important those walking connections are, and I can see for myself. I was actually sitting here thinking, like, wow, wouldn't it be wonderful to do a walking tour maybe that started here at City Hall, caught the Seward Museum, those beautiful homes along the route. I'm sure there's stories behind each one of them, and ends at the Tubman Museum. But if you're going to do that, you're going to need a sidewalk to walk on. So, I mean, I can certainly see that. Some of the other issues, I heard a lot about ADA. ADA and the whole issue of pedestrian ramps, wheelchair and disability access, all of those issues are things that are very important to Commissioner Driscoll. And he, as he has started and settling in at New York State DOT, has encouraged us, his senior team, to take a real look at what are we doing at DOT to make sure that we don't want to just meet the letter of the law on those issues. What we want to do is make sure that we are understanding the mission of the law, or the spirit of that law, which is a fully inclusive society for people of every different stripe and every different issue. I mean, so we are taking the commissioner and the governor's thoughts on that and trying to pull that into DOT and to make sure that we do change our ways as well, and make sure that we are doing more than just the good work that we've done in the past of making sure that we meet that letter of the law, but to take it to that next level. We're doing that, and I thank you very much for your comments in that. I know that we have in the past had. I'm new to DOT, so I'm learning too. But one of the things that I have been told is that when we are doing training of our designers and some of our construction folks, that we have started actually putting them, sit in the wheelchair, see if you can get up that ramp, see what that feels like. Are we, okay, it's at whatever the slope is required to be, but let's go further than that. So we're taking your good advice already, and I'll make sure that the commissioner hears about that too. The other piece I did want to just mention is that, we are DOTs, and again, I worked in state government in Massachusetts. I actually worked for Governor Patrick for 8 years in the Parks Agency and DEP. I've worked all around state government, all in Massachusetts, but I'm happy to be here in this much bigger state of New York. But, one of the things that DOTs and have kind of a reputation for being is just about moving the cars. We're going to move the car from point A to point B, and we're going to do it as fast as we can, and we're going to make sure that there's not a whole lot of traffic. We're going to try to do that. I think that we've all recognized, and certainly the Complete Streets initiative here in New York State, the initiatives that the First Lady has started. We know that it's important for people to get outside and to exercise, and walking is one of the best things we can do. So we are, as an organization, trying to take a look at that. Of course, we need to move the cars, we need to move the trucks, but we also have to take into account the needs of the people. So that's something else that we're also trying to do at New York State DOT, and hopefully you'll see more of that. I think, let's see, what else did I hear? Economic development, I think if you hear Commissioner Driscoll speak, and I know he'll want to come up and visit with you himself, he talks about that, New York State DOT, again, we're not just a transportation agency. We're actually a land use and economic development agency, because, of course, infrastructure is those building blocks of economic development, of land use. So we, again, are trying to be that much more nimble, much more thoughtful organization at the direction of the commissioner and the governor, so we are able to respond better to your needs. And certainly can't forget about the need for economic development, jobs, all of that is just so important. So I think I did also hear, though, money for a visitor center. That's a little outside my purview, but that's right. But what I will do is make sure that when I get back to the office, or even maybe off my phone this afternoon, that I make sure that the folks in the governor's office are aware that you've raised that, and I'm sure they already know. But I'll remind them that was a big issue here today, and that the need that we don't want Maryland to get ahead of us. I mean, I haven't been here long in New York, but I know that New York doesn't want to be behind Maryland. So, let's figure out how we can. I don't know where those conversations stand. I will check into it, and I'll try to make sure that we get back to you. I know that my team, Eileen, has been taking notes for us. So, anyone who asked a question or made a suggestion, I'm going to make sure that we get back to you and that we answer those. But I'm also happy if I missed anything. Any questions? Thoughts? Great. I have my card with me. I'm happy to give that to folks. And again, thank you so much for having me here to Auburn. I don't know, Mayor, if you wanted to say anything else, but I really appreciate being here, and I'm going to try to come back for more than a 45-minute drive and trip. Thank you.
I have to ask you, are you a Red Sox fan? Patriots. How about Red Sox? Okay. All right. Well, there's two of us here in the building now, so I'm happy to have you here. So.
I was going to say that my favorite thing to do. So what I love to do now is come into work on Monday morning and talk about how football was over the weekend. We have a lot of different football fans at New York State DOT. I've found out some Bills fans, we have some Jets fans, we have some Giants fans, we even have a Dallas Cowboy fan. And you know what? Every weekend I'm able to just talk about, gee, what about those Patriots? Yeah.
I'm a Giants fan, but we have the Red Sox in common. So thank you very much for being here. Auburn, the city of Auburn's tagline is history's hometown. And there is considerable history tied in with the city of Auburn. And you may not be aware of this. You may very well be. 2 rows behind you is Elizabeth Koenig. Elizabeth owns a home. No, Elizabeth, raise your hand, please. Within about 3 blocks of each other, we have the home of William Seward, who was Secretary of State, but also John Foster Dulles is Elizabeth's home now. So we have 2 Secretaries of State who were very prominent in our national history. So there's just so much going on here in Auburn, and I'm sure everyone here has a little story to tell you about it, but I won't bore you with that. Mine are bad enough. So we do thank you for being here, and your staff. You've been very receptive. We appreciate it. Please give our best to Commissioner Driscoll. He owes us a trip back. He's a good friend, and he's always been very good with Auburn. And please relay what we need, what we're hoping to receive, not necessarily receive, but to work with the governor and a lieutenant governor. It's very important to this community and to all of us, and we look forward to you having come back in the near future. So thank you very much.